name is Valentine Joseph Gandhi Bhavanirajan, which is not unusual for a South Indian to have long names. But yes, people generally call me Val.
All right. Nice to meet you, Val. And you're in Jakarta right now, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so look, to help put the conversation into context, I've just been reading up about you. You've got a really interesting background. Could you kind of talk me through what you do?
So I started my career 17, almost 18 years now as a IT programmer. And then by chance, I met a migrant worker's family being ill-treated in a train journey back in India, and I wasn't sure. I kind of, it broke the bubble that I was living in, and when I realized there are folks who couldn't afford even 3 rupees or whatever the ticket that was, and so I was supposed to go for an MBA and continue in IT, but instead I said I shouldn't be doing IT, but rather more towards social development. So I ended up doing a master's in social work, and then I did the research on migrants because it was a migrant workers' plight which made me move into. So my master's thesis was on migration as well, and then eventually I started doing research because I found it a powerful tool to connect issues uh, and connect grassroots with policy, connect solutions with people who need them. And then I also went on to do a PhD, also working on migrants. I mean, you can see a paper which was a long time ago, where the I looked at a topic which was not common at that time, comparing health and agriculture and health and poverty. Because I did look at migrant workers, but their dynamics with regards to HIV/AIDS and poverty and so on and so forth, which if you Google, you will find it as a book chapter as well as working paper. But I made sure that I did my research in order to not have journal articles sitting in shelves and conferences, but rather something that could actually be implemented. So nearly all of the projects that I worked on, whether it's research or evaluation or innovation, have always been more research for development or action-oriented projects. So
Okay.
I don't do a lot of academic stuff. I'm a very field guy. I mean, if you look at the difference between my neck and my skin color, you'll see years in the field. So I worked in conflict zones like Somalia and Afghanistan, and also mostly the last 10 years I was in Africa, and then I moved here. But I'm primarily work on issues that help build safety nets for vulnerable groups, whether it's farmers or refugees or women or children. So essentially, folks who are deemed vulnerable, and I have never viewed them as people in need or as people who are, I mean, I don't approach it with a charity, or I don't know, like a handout kind of an approach, but more as a development partner kind of approach, where in the last 17 years, I've often seen the solutions to poverty issues are often simple, but they're not functioning largely due to the institutional frameworks or structural issues surrounding them. There could be many, like governance or hierarchies and caste or tribalism. There are tons of issues, but usually often small things that need a fixing.
Okay.
So,
Joe, just quickly, so I don't mean to interrupt you. Your laptop's on your knee, right?
sorry,
Is your laptop on your knee?
it's on my, yeah, it is. Is it
Okay,
shaking?
you're just shaking a little bit, so I don't want, I want you just to talk, but just be aware that it's shaking a little bit. So
Sorry, I'm at home. That's why. Yes.
no, I get it. That's why I was sitting there thinking. So look, you just cut out for a little second there. So just let me understand. So you really believe in being a partner of vulnerable people and working with them and what they think they need, more than kind of coming in from the outside.
Yes and no, because not all the time folks would know what they need.
Okay.
So it is both ways. I work both vertically and horizontally, to put it in a theoretical perspective, meaning there are things like, for instance, I've worked in nearly 60 countries. So I probably know what a particular community needs in a particular situation. But the community also needs to have that capacity to absorb a solution. So we can't come in and say, yeah, this works there, so it works for you, because the dynamics of every community or a group or a village or a farmer is different.
Okay,
So
but from picking up what you're saying though, unlike some other agencies, you're not sitting in an office in New York or London or Geneva deciding what needs to happen. You're there on the ground using your knowledge and bringing that knowledge to that village, right? Or those set of peoples.
yes, yes, that's right. So the Development Cafe is an organization that I started when I was doing my master's. But until last year, I wasn't fully involved with it because I was doing other projects for the UN and other research centers that I worked with. And also I did a lot of work for USAID, and it's a self-funded NGO. And what it does is it has three pillars: research for development, innovation, and ICT 4D, under which our blockchain project rests. And lastly, capacity development. So it's registered in Kenya as well as in Indonesia. So it's been there for the last 17 years. So we do small scale, low profile projects covering these three pillars. Uh, and from last year, I'm fully involved with it, with the Development Cafe. Even though I founded it, usually I just chair the board and we have staff doing work which fit into these projects. And I have initiated a couple of projects. One is this blockchains for refugees projects. The other is a IoT systems based precision farming project. And we plan to open a space, a co-working space for asylum seekers and refugees. Uh,
All right, there's a lot to unpack there. Just going back, could you explain what I noticed you're also part of ETI. Could you explain what ETI is?
Also, ETI is an NGO run by a friend called Sarah Minkara. So it is, I think, empowerment through integration. So it's based in Boston, Massachusetts. Sarah is a visually disabled person, and when she was in her master's, she started this NGO, which specifically works with providing awareness on blindness to Muslim communities in Lebanon and in the US. And I think she's planning to expand in Indonesia as well. So my role is to provide research and evaluation support, because I'm primarily a researcher and an evaluator. So I'm one of the international advisors. It's kind of like a board member position, but I don't vote or anything. I mostly provide external advisory support to
Okay.
ETI.
All right. That's good to just help me put context around it. So you're obviously very hands-on. I'm just trying to also understand your background. I think you've got a very inspiring story. So I guess in a way you're quite rare that you've got the tech skills. I guess you're a coder, you're an engineer,
Yes.
but you also seem like someone who cares about migrants, cares about the world around you. Do you think that's a rare set of skills? Because if I look at, and the reason I'm asking is I'm looking at a lot of what's happening around blockchain, and it's all, people trying to make money from Ethereum, people trying to make money from ICOs, and there aren't many people like you kind of going off there and helping, underprivileged. And I guess if I'm thinking about what I'm looking at, I'm also trying to work out, is there going to be a situation? Actually, maybe this is a conversation for later when we're a bit deeper. So yeah, tell me about your background and being that kind of person in the development community, someone with tech skills.
Yeah, I mean, it's often a big challenge being a technology person in development and trying to understand. If you see in the last 2 months, if you follow American politics or American news, Mark Zuckerberg and folks in Google were summoned before the Senate to answer charges on possible collision with Russia and so on and so forth. And I mean, beyond the politics of all that is the clear understanding that just because you've built a successful company, it doesn't mean you're successful because you've just made a lot of money. It doesn't mean you understand human value or human dynamics. So people may worship people like Mark Zuckerberg and invite him for things and look at him as an example. But basically, what he has done is taken an idea, has made tons of money. But as is the problem with a lot of folks in technology, they don't understand technology is there to serve human beings and not the other way around.
Okay, and then they also make all this money they then give away, which is very good, but maybe if they didn't make so much money, more good would have happened. Anyway, that's not what this conversation is about.
Sure, giveaway also is a big. I don't know what they're giving away.
Give me some context, or help me. We're looking at utopias and dystopias. Looking at what you're doing, do you feel like you're banging your head against the wall, or do you think there's an opportunity for change right now, using blockchain, using IoT to help people who have less opportunities in life?
I think the opportunity has always been there. It's just that the technology has made it a lot more easier, given the IoTs, given the mobile phone, which was a major revolution, and internet. And so like my farmers, and in fact, I'm going to Mexico tomorrow to show how I use this phone to this particular watch, which is $9 to collect data in places like Somalia.
You just cut out there. Did you say it's $9? That's a $9
Yes,
watch.
it is $9.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's locally made in Bandung, which is like the Silicon Valley of Indonesia. So this conference in Mexico I'm going, it's an international conference of evaluators. But if you see, only few people talk about technology there. And 2 months ago, I was in a conference on technology where all the big guys from tech were there, but nobody was there from the development sector. This is what I'm talking about in terms of folks who do tech with the flashy gadgets and tons of investors, and then folks who are in development. I think this is the best time for them to work together. And one of the things we do in Development Cafe is to bring them together, not just to have a workshop where you discuss and go away, but actually engage them. So we try and organize workshops, like we had one in Jakarta, the next one, and now we are doing this in Mexico, using this opportunity from ideas to present how technology can actually improve the efficiency of human need. Yes, please. You want to say something?
Just so to fully understand, so that $9 watch has got like a GPS in it, and it's used for precision farming in some way.
No. This is for data collection in climate change scenarios. And yes, it does connect to IoTs. So it has a camera, it has the mobile data collection module, and so on and so forth. So I'm just simply demonstrating
and other people to use big data by inputting data.
Yes, that's right. So this is possible even in conflict zones because you're not going on with a big table and collecting data and gathering attention in high-risk zones like Mogadishu or anything.
So what kind of data, what kind of use cases are you thinking of? What kind of data would you be collecting with a watch like that? Where would it be most useful?
So I'm going to talk about as data we already collected in 2016 for a study with a local NGO, but I am not at liberty to say what it is, but the data is on agriculture and livestock. So basically on how the interventions on improving particular seeds and crops in agriculture as well as livestock management.
Okay.
So for livestock management, there is a tiny wearable thing which is tied to the cow's tail, which detects if the cow is in stress and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm presenting, because this conference is an annual conference of evaluators. So it's the technology is not the primary, objective. Yeah. But I'm trying to show as a case study from a live case study, not just a theory, but how effectively theories can be applied and human beings can be benefited if technology
All right, so look, you've got your fingers in lots of pies and in lots of places. Looking at data collection, what are your other kind of, and you've mentioned a whole list of countries, and it's almost too many to ask you about, but what are your top 3 projects right now? So this is obviously one of them. What are the other 2 kind of top projects?
So one of them I am the most I'm excited about is a project which is titled I Am, which is at the moment a research study, but we plan to expand it. I can send you a link to that project after this call. Please feel free to quote it. So it is trying to see if blockchains can be used to provide digital IDs for refugees in order for them to access digital jobs and get paid in cryptocurrencies in case they do not have a bank account or an ID of sorts. The challenge of doing such a project in a country like Indonesia or Thailand is because they are not signatories to the 1951 Accord. We can't do such a project here, but we can do the research study to understand what are the challenges and gaps. So that's what we're starting at the moment.
So if you do the study, you might be able to get the laws changed.
No, I'm not sure about that. I mean, we can present a case and say that this can reduce the burden or
so look, help me understand. You're in Indonesia. You're a refugee of some kind.
Me, I'm not a refugee.
Oh, sorry, my apology. But so give me a scenario of the person, where they might be, what is a digital job? I'm not saying I fully understand what a digital job is.
So probably you've heard of the term digital nomad.
Yeah.
So folks travel for a year, but they keep working through sites like Upwork and Freelancer and so on and so forth. And again, you might have heard a concept called impact sourcing, which usually works with sourcing micro jobs and small jobs to vulnerable people. So we want to see if we can bring the same concept to refugees as well. So the Development Cafe, which is my organization, we partner with 3 learning centers in Indonesia, and also we are planning to do the same in Thailand and in Germany and in Finland. So in Germany and Finland, we can start piloting it right away because they are signatories to the 1951 Accord. But in Thailand and in Indonesia, we want to ensure we are within the legal parameters. So we are starting as a gap assessment study, which is purely a research study. And later on, certainly we will engage the government and see if we can pilot such a project with the permission from the government and if they allow it.
All right, so I'm gonna keep trying to dumb it down. So I apologize to that. So I'm a migrant in Finland or in Germany. I've got a laptop or a phone. I've got an ID, a digital ID, which is what, like a face print? Is it a number on the blockchain that identifies me?
Yes.
All right, so it's not like a photo card. It's like a identity card. Okay.
It's an app.
And I go on the site, and the charity maybe has source jobs I can do. So it might be doing data entry. It might be, working for a social network, approving photographs, those kind of things.
That's right. So what we are trying to do is follow the cognitive association, a cognitive interview process. Like the company that we are partnering with creates an app which creates a digital ID using blockchains. Uh, the 2 ways to validate your ID is, one is if you have an expired or an old passport or some sort, we still accept it. And the sites still accept them. Or you could have 6 people in your network validate who you say you are. Okay. And it's a more of a good faith gentleman's acceptance kind of a thing. And then once you receive the smart app, you could use it to, we do our due diligence to make sure who is it as well individually, because this is not a huge solution. We are piloting it to see if it works.
It's a good enough solution. I think.
Sorry, yeah, hopefully, yeah. I mean, we are hoping so. And you don't need to, and that is the first step, identifying the gaps in these centers. And second step is to bring in companies which can train them in the digital jobs or digital nomad jobs. It could be SEO, which is the search engine optimization, or basic WordPress coding, or any job that is listed in Freelancer or Upwork.com. And we also want to directly partner with these sites rather than looking for them in the website, but partner with them to get bulk jobs. So we do the research and gap assessment, we do the training on the skills required to do these jobs, and then we are in the process of setting up this space for doing these jobs. So it would be like a co-working space
So
for
like
refugees.
a co-working space in Jakarta, a co-working space in a refugee camp, or both, or
I mean, not in a camp. Again, I said we cannot give jobs in
okay, sorry.
Jakarta or in Thailand. So we are not in that stage. We probably will start with Finland and Germany to begin with. But in Jakarta, we will only do the skill assessment. And if the government allows us to pilot such a project, and if they partner with us, then we will test it. Otherwise, we will do it in a country where it is legal to do this. So
Okay,
that's the
so
idea.
I don't want to lead you down saying something you're not comfortable saying, but it also sounds like with new technology, various accords, various government regulation, international treaties maybe need to be updated to reflect what the situation is today and the technology we have available.
That's right. That's why we want to engage the government from the beginning and make sure uh, we see whether they can be a party to it. And again, changing laws is not up to us, and it depends on. We can, as a research organization, we can only try to present
Yeah.
possible scenarios and advantages of doing a project like this. Again,
But if the public understand what you're doing, the public can maybe talk to politicians.
yes, unfortunately, in some countries, the public are more engaged with Facebook and Instagram than about social issues. So that's so some of the downsides of technology as well.
Well,
So
look,
yeah, we keep
one of the
trying
things
our best.
I'm trying to do is to help me make people care by just understanding it. And I think sometimes people do great things in technology. It doesn't always communicate to the wider public. So yeah, that's what we'd like to do. So the Iron Project, what if you were looking for help, what kind of help would you be looking for on the Iron Project? Or are you all sorted good? What kind of people would you
No,
like to
I
be
mean,
speaking to?
we always look for partners with good technology, and so we try to be low profile and self-funded largely because the moment you come into contact with high investors or big donors, I worked for donors in the past, then our aim is no longer for what we originally started. I mean, supposing I start a big startup and I bring in a donor, and then I forget why I started the company, and the only reason existing is to make sure the investor is happy or they get their dividends. So we lose track of the fluidity in which we work. We are not a typical Aat Panch Pachis organization. Aat Panch Pachis in Hindi means 8-5-25. I mean, you show up to work at 8, leave at 5, and 25th you work. 25th you get your salary, you go home. At least my staff, the small number, and myself, we think this is a calling. It's not a job. So we keep it small, low profile, work with people who can empower themselves and are just missing out on small things, and we build them either through research, either through building capacity, or through technology. So
Okay,
that's what we try to do. So if what we're looking for in partners is people with technology, and of course, if you want to invest in co-working space or things like that, we are happy to work with people who are serious about what they do and not just have a lot of money and but not involved in the process.
okay. So just going back to, I've got one question around IAM. When you're paying cryptocurrency, Is it your own cryptocurrency? Is it Bitcoin or Ether, one of the established ones? Or is it like a new kind of NGO, UN, cryptocurrency? What cryptocurrency
We
is it?
haven't come to that stage yet. The project is still in the research stage, but we are talking to multiple people to see uh, what would be more feasible in a context like refugees uh, in countries where they can use it. So we are still looking for partners in those lines. So if you know someone who works with refugees, I'm happy to be linked with them and discuss with them. So we don't
Okay.
have a preference for a particular type of currency.
We'll
Like
see
I
what
say,
comes up.
whatever works. Sorry?
We'll see what comes up.
Yeah, yeah. We are still in a very basic research stage, still doing
Okay.
the gap assessment, and these are long-term plans. So
I'm
it
also
depends on a
enjoying
lot
the
of.
flute prayer in the background. It's very beautiful singing.
Yes, it's the azan from the mosque nearby. This is Indonesia and Jakarta.
Yeah, no, it's good. And to be honest, you hear the same thing in London. I'm in London today, normally in LA. LA, you don't hear call to prayers. In London, I'm actually 20 meters away from a mosque here. So, anyway,
Yeah, in Jakarta, it's a little, it's a lot more prominent
it's a lot more.
compared to other Muslim.
So, look, talking about your
And
organizations, you just hit upon an interesting question for me. One of the new things that blockchain, especially, is bringing out is something called uh, decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, which is one of
yeah,
those
yeah,
things that nobody outside this little sector understands. I think sometimes people call it decentralized. So, do you think this is a way is it a way you're working, and is it a way that you think businesses should go or organizations should go, especially businesses that are maybe a hybrid between a commercial and a non-commercial? What's your opinion about DAOs?
um, so again, in life, at least from my simple, small experience, way there are multiple ways to approach depending on the need, and we also don't jump on any bandwagon sort of things just because it's the hype of the time. We do due diligence, and even right now, like we are developing some apps for some companies which work on rice. So we don't always recommend the use of blockchain because there are some cases where relational database would do the same thing. You don't need a blockchain for everything just because it sounds cool and because there's money. But yes, as an organization, we've always been decentralized. We don't tell people or our staff, even though we don't have a lot of staff, whoever works with us, they have an idea and we give them a platform to perform. And yes, we have a structure, a board, and so on and so forth, but nevertheless we don't really fit into that. We are a very fluid organization. Anything that works for our main cause of empowering people, bridging the grassroots with policy, we support that. But at the same time, we don't say this is the way, this is the solution, or this is the
So,
way to go.
okay, this is slightly an aside, but I'm really interested in your viewpoint from where you are, what your background is, not looking at things in a. So, look, I'm born in London, which is more international. I live in California. I look at Silicon Valley, and the great tech comes from there, but I feel like it's a bubble that has a very narrow outlook on what the world is and how it should be, and doesn't necessarily understand. So, do you think decentralized organizations such as yours are going to be a big part of the future moving forward, especially if you're talking about, digital nomads, people working from laptops rather than going to an office? Is that how I know it's not directly about your work. Is that how you see the future? That's more of a part of the mix?
Yeah, I mean, certainly more and more organizations are moving towards a decentralized a kind of an approach, not just because of the technology, but it also makes monetary sense in so many ways. Instead of having expensive offices, they just focus on the task. So, as a person who always advocated for frugal innovation, if I may put it that way, I certainly support it rather than have expensive projects and ultimately nothing in the field. You could have simple solutions where hierarchies are mostly flat. And so, yeah, certainly I would support it. But at the day's end, this is a very dynamic place, the world. And so there are still organizations which may not be decentralized because they are designed to be like that, and that's how they function effectively. So, but it is, I would certainly support decentralized functioning. But again, decentralized function, it's like the UN or any other large projects. Often the success of it staying close to what they intended to do depends usually on the person who's in charge in a particular country or in a particular project. So we can't expect everyone to be so idealistic, and simply because you've decentralized something, it's not going to be successful. Everything depends on who is in charge or who is the person running the project. You could have a $10 million relief project, but if the person in the field is a douchebag, it's going to be a failure, irrespective of whether it's centralized or decentralized. So again, it all depends on the people. That's why we need to build uh, the kind of like advocacy for telling the tech folks, bringing them more closer to the human impact of technology, and the folks like us in the development sector, the human development sector, try and more walk into the shoes of technical people to understand how these things can work together and break those silos.
Okay, so
Because
it's not just about transparency, it's about transparency and communication.
yes, transparency, communication, and a willingness to get out of their silos and insecurities and walk together and work together, even though their business models may not match or seemingly not match. But ultimately, we live in one island called Earth, and we are all interconnected, and everything we do affects one or the other. So
So, do you know what? I'm thinking aloud, and I may be talking bullshit, so I'm sorry if I can. You're making me think like right now, a lot of businesses have been run almost in this war mentality, where it's battalions and battles with your competitors and battles with other people. And what you're talking about is, we should all just be walking hand in hand. So even if we're not, don't see direct benefit, societal benefits, or it's good in the long term, something will come back in the long term.
I'm sorry, I lost you a little bit there. Could you repeat the?
I was thinking aloud, so maybe my thoughts weren't clear, but essentially saying rather than right now a lot of business, especially business and government and the way we trade, is about battles and conflict and trying to get one over somebody else, and the system we're heading towards may be a little more cooperative. And people need to, or you're saying it would be better if people got out of the mindset of thinking in terms of that and a little more of that. Would that be fair to say?
I mean, most people, at least us in the development sector or human development sector, believe that. Long time ago,
but I think the
there
development
was
sector
this
mindset.
big rush on the. Sorry?
The development sector mindset can be very different from a business mindset, especially people that are very commercial. They're like you're saying, they're in their silo. They think very differently, and maybe they need to think a little more openly. Do you know what?
But it's also unfair to say that everybody in technology is not collaborative. I think a lot of the times I have seen that development sector tends to follow a private tech company or private company model of collaboration, because often development sector tends to be led by who funds them, and if they change, the development sector also changes. And what we advocate is trying to ensure development sector leads in making such changes and collaborations and efforts happen compared to the tech sector.
Okay.
So
let's maybe more
like this in both sectors.
You mentioned frugal innovation earlier, and one of the areas that interests me especially as a storyteller is if I look at what happened in Africa, which went from, and maybe even bits of India, which went from having no infrastructure to jumping straight to mobile phones, straight to mobile banking and new forms of technology that in certain ways were way ahead of the rich West. Do you see frugal innovation, and what are the possibilities? What might happen
I
with this
can't
new
hear you.
technology coming
Flash.
in. Sorry, I'll start again. What do you think? If you
Hello?
can you hear me? Okay, so
Yeah, now I can hear you, but
okay. So look,
a bit.
just kind of put your dreaming hat on for a second. Sometimes new technology allows underdeveloped nations to skip ahead a generation or two, like with Africa and m-banking, or India and mobile phones rather than wired phones. What are the possibilities you see in some of the underdeveloped places that you've been to, be that, you know, whichever countries? You know, what's your dream that technology or new technology can bring to underdeveloped countries?
So normally in our approaches, when we try to influence policy, or either as an individual or as an organization, we work with people who are in some places known as positive deviants, and we usually call them black sheeps. You will find some of them, probably you are one of them, at least looking at your profile. So you will find a black sheep or a positive deviant in almost every group or a company or a government office, who usually tap and try to push what is commonly beneficial ahead. And I think with technology, we can have a community of practice of such uh, positive deviance to be able to connect. I know it's a very generic answer and not a specific response to what you asked, because I cannot foresee what's going to happen. It really depends on multiple factors. But what I do see happening is more and more of these black sheeps and positive deviants are able to engage with people that they otherwise could not engage, due to the changing ways of the way we communicate and the technologies and modern facilities that we have.
Okay.
I don't know if you could answer
Yeah,
your
no, that's
question, but
fair enough. So tell
slightly
me a little
more.
bit about, I asked you, tell me what other projects you're working on. You mentioned I Am, and I asked about three. Is Bakir's project one of those, or should I talk to Bakir about that project, or is there anything else, any other projects you should tell me about? Or
So Bakir has a learning center, and we are doing research in his learning center. So as a result of that, he's one of the partners. We actually work with three of them: Roshan, Help, and Sunrise. These are three refugee learning centers, all based here. And we're planning to partner with Asylum Access in Thailand as well. So these are refugee learning centers, meaning they are placed for refugees to come and learn English and have a place they can call home.
and
So
this is
we,
where you're doing the I Am research.
yes, the research part is happening in these three centers, of which Bakir also is one of our respondents, so to
Okay.
speak, for the study. Yeah, yeah. The
All right.
other project that we have tons of projects, if you've looked at our website, but the main one is this one, and then we are trying to develop an app which is eventually going to be a blockchain-based app for sustainable rice production. To be able to, there's a rice called sticky, which is very famous in Thailand, which is a healthy rice with limited sugar and so on and so forth. So we're trying to create a app to see and measure its adaptation rates. And we are testing low cost IoT solutions. This is the third project, to do precision farming for smallholder farmers. Because usually the IoT solutions or smart farming or precision farming are very expensive and are available only for commercial farmers. And we want to see if we can use the opportunity of volume of smallholders to smallholder farmers to be able to provide a solution. Again, it's in a pilot testing phase, but the sensors are so cheap in Indonesia as well as in
All right.
Southeast Asia. So it gives us.
Going back to your question, sustainable rice farming. Explain that to me. I don't know what sustainable rice farming or unsustainable rice farming is.
So SRP is a platform initiated by the UN, the CGIAR, and it's based in multiple countries. I can send you a link to that. You can have a look at it. So they do multiple interventions. If you know the CGIR, it's Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research. and they have multiple partners. And I've worked with many CG centers myself personally, and so they try to provide technologies and focus on improving the smallholder farmers, and they nearly work on all the crops. It's because the world has, I think, nearly 20 agroecosystems, agroecological zones, as they are known as by the FAO classification. And in each zone, there's a particular crop, there's a particular soil type, and the CG centers work on. So rice is a commercial crop, and there are rice farmers, and changing climate change can affect them. So the SRP was put together to make sure it remains in a way that farmers are able to combat climate change. They are able to use modern techniques and technologies and so on and so forth. So we are not directly involved with SRP, but one of the partners we work with, we are creating a small mobile-based app that that is able to link the farmers directly to the solutions that they are providing. So that's one project. And because people in our line of work can get burnt out, we also have a program called Bodhi Soul, which is the retreat program aimed at building resilience, in mental resilience for people like me, you, folks who work with a lot of human beings and issues, real issues in life. So that's based in Bali. If you see our website, you can see it's one of our projects.
The cafe, devcafe.org website.
Yeah, dev-cafe.org website, if you see the projects.
I didn't have a chance to look at it as deeply as I wanted to because we jumped on the call. So thank you.
No problem.
That's really interesting. So explain to me a little more about how to do low-cost precision farming as well.
So like I said, these sensors or IoTs that are used in farms can cost anywhere between $4,000 to $5,000. So we want to bring it down to maybe $200 an equipment, and have a solar powered small scale equipment that can inform the farmer about the moisture and when to plant. So can act as a small scale climate measurement tool that can inform the farmer to precisely plant at the right time. So that's what we are trying to test with some local partners here, local NGOs that work with the small, really small farmers. So there are plenty of people who do much advanced level IoT based farming, but again, these are for commercial farmers, and we are trying to work with really, really small scale farmers who cannot afford the solutions like the $4,000 ones. But again, the issue of sustainable energy and sustainability exists here. And because we function on a research for development model, again, this is something we are pilot testing to see whether something like this is scalable or feasible, uh, because we have the advantage of volume. So it doesn't have to be a big solution for a few people, but a small solution for a lot of people. So
okay, it sounds like, so you cut out a bit there, but we got the gist of it, or I got the gist of it. It seems like, we spoke again about good enough solutions. So lots of cheap solutions that do 80% of an ideal, for a little bit of money rather than 100% for a lot. But it also sounds like to me that all these things you're working on, the precision farming, for people whose lifestyle is a little more subsistence, it feels like this is a network of things that can work together, that in the future, you go from being perhaps a refugee to a farmer. I don't know if that's, or a digital worker. So it's giving people a path, I guess, to a better lifestyle. But what I'm trying to...
but the refugee project is not connected to the precision farming.
No, but I'm just saying it's offering maybe it's me looking at it from Western eyes, that it's helping people that are, say, living at the bottom, below the poverty line, be that because they're refugees or because they've got other issues. It's just helping people improve their lives. People who've not got a lot, it's helping them. It's going to help.
Yes, basically to empower people. I think the best intervention anyone could have is a job, and also the smarts to retain the job. you've heard of the phrase, teach a man to fish rather than give a man to fish, or teach a woman to fish rather than give a woman to fish. But we believe in the third component, which is ensure they're connected to the market and know how to sell the fish as well. So,
All right.
because simply because I learn how to fish doesn't mean I'll be a solid fisher person, a fish business
So look, I
person.
don't know if you've got an opinion. One of the things that people are talking a lot in the West about is UBI, Universal Basic Income,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this new technology. Do you see that? And I've heard some people talking about UBI being for the third world or it being a global opportunity. Do you have any thoughts or opinions around that, especially in your situation or where you're trying to help?
So I don't have a specific opinions of sorts, because as much as I am personally interested in a lot of these projects, I am still a very objective thinker because of the being in research for such a long time. But I do believe in the universal ability to earn an income.
Okay.
Everybody should be able to get an income and get paid for uh, whatever it is that gives them a right to live decently, right to improve their lifestyle, a right to have a better health care, and have a good life for their future generations as well. So that's why I don't like things like when somebody makes less than $15 an hour and the CEO of a company makes 300 times. These are, I find, if I was that CEO, I cannot go to sleep peacefully, knowing that I am living in this big mansion and people who are making this happen. I know when I start talking to my American friends, they think I am left or right. And I mean, for us growing up in India, there is no left or right. It's basic human decency to know that I can't be making tons of money when I see someone else starve. And maybe I was raised in a Christian family,
Yeah.
so
Do you know what? No, I agree with you. So look, I'm in London today. I've lived in which is where I'm from, Polish family. I've lived in the US for the last 10 years. I come here and people that would be considered right of center would be very left in the US. So, it's about perspective. And what I'm trying to do, just to let you know without this, is trying to not go too much down politics, because I want people just to see what's happening without looking
yeah,
at it through a lens of left
exactly.
or
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, as a researcher, I also don't get into politics, but it's just that sometimes it boggles my mind to know that this is not left thinking or right thinking. It's just basic human nature to be empathetic towards everyone. I think at least the way we are brought up in Asian cultures, and I come from a Christian family, so we grew up on these values. So naturally, I certainly support that every individual should have the right, irrespective of the color or creed or so-called disabilities and differences, to be able to have a decent earning income. But of the concept of universal basic income, I don't have an opinion, because I haven't worked on it so
Okay,
much.
I mean, okay, and I get that, and I understand what you're saying about the values. Just for context, I guess again as well, I went to a very Christian, very Catholic school in the UK, but also my cousin went to a Catholic school in the US.
No?
It's
Hmm.
the what we were taught in a way was very different in terms of outlook on life. I think what I got in London was a lot more about caring for your fellow human being and respecting your fellow human being. And what my cousin got in America was very much like, do it our way. And if you're not Christian, you're not really worth, or you're not Catholic, you're not. But that's not the conversation. All right, look, we're getting towards the end of our time. Is there anything I haven't asked you about? Anything you think I should know, or anything you think I should research, or anything you feel I should know? I should know at this stage. I'm sure we'll talk again, but
No, I think if I said we try to advocate for technology people to understand human beings and our sector more, and we advocate our sector people to understand technology more, so that they can work together, because ultimately all of this is for human benefit. And so it works. It makes sense for us to ensure that you've probably heard of the concept of ICT 4D, or information and communication technology for development. but it should be D for ICT. I mean, development should be guiding how technology grows and evolves. So in your speeches and in your interactions, if you are an advocate for technology, primarily for human beings, uh, it'll be awesome. And
So it's less about engineers saying what they can do and more about development people saying what would be useful, and that being
yes, exactly. Yes. And what they can do is great, but what would be the impact of that? And so they should work hand in hand with the folks in development, our government officials and policymakers, and so on and so forth. And just
awesome.
having an investor and tons of money is not enough if you're talking about
All right.
real impacts.
So one last question. To help communicate this story, I'm looking to ideally go, be it me or whoever else, go on the ground and film how these new technologies are already changing the world and how they might scale up, outside where we are. Do you think, there's Bakir's project, which we'll look at in Indonesia. Is there any other projects you think we should look at, or is that the main one you think we should look and consider?
You mean folks that you want to interview?
Yeah, or if we were going to go film, if we were going to actually make, when we go make the actual documentary, and we're looking for an experiment, a pilot project that is actually live and happening, and we can go and look at and talk to people. Is that the Indonesian project? Is that I Am? Is that in your trials? Is it something you've come across, or is there another project you've seen that you think we should look at?
Oh, certainly you can come visit us when you come to Jakarta. And I mean, our research project is starting, and hopefully in the new year, we will have this space that I told you about, where you can come and visit the refugee groups. Certainly. And I can also put you in touch with folks in Thailand who works for USAID, and he's a champion of this technology for good, and also another colleague in FHI, Family Health International, both of whom are development people advocating for technology. And I'm sure they will have tons of projects that they can look at, because at the moment, yes, of course, you're welcome to shoot our project and see what it is about, both here as well as in Kenya. But in addition to us, if you'd like to interview, I can recommend Josh from FHI would, and also Kyriakos, who is the regional advisor for science and technology for USAID.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with those on email and get their details. But just really quickly, so you're doing trials in Kenya as well?
Yes, for the precision farming with partnership with.
Where is that project? Tell me about the location where that project is happening in Kenya.
In Eldoret, in Western Kenya.
Eldoret, and that's with refugees as well.
No. That's the precision farming. So the refugee project is only I am.
Okay, all right, I've got that. All right, look, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be talking by email and probably by video chat as well. So it's been really, really illuminating. I've seen a whole new angle that I've not had before. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Keep doing the good work. You look. It sounds very interesting.
Hopefully, it's all going to work out. And have a good time and have a good trip and a successful trip in Mexico.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Bye.